and Doucette.
And Davis.
That's it, just the three?
That is it, sir.
And the name of staff present?
The staff that are present are Trudy Davis and Joe Doucette, and then Ken Wellington from the Elko County Game Board is here.
Got it. Thank you very much. And in Las Vegas?
Commissioner Macbeth, Chairman Paul Dixon of the County Advisory Board, Doug Nielsen, and Kathleen Telegatis for the department.
All right, thank you. All right, and is Mr. Vogler on the phone yet? I was told he'd call in probably a few minutes after. Well, we have a quorum is present. We have 7 here, 1 on the phone, makes 8. So quorum being present, we can proceed. All right, I'd like to call this meeting Friday, April 15th, 2011 to order. First item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. And this item, of course, includes
We start with the
all
pledge.
of our agenda through item 23. Yes?
Start with the pledge.
Yes. Actually, it's usually on the agenda, and I missed it. Thank you. We'll start with Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for the reminder. Always helpful. Approval of the agenda. Commissioner, review the agenda and may remove items for consideration or just order presentation. Items on the agenda without a time designation may not necessarily be considered in the order in which they appear on the agenda. And the items under 6 are the only ones, I believe, that have a time designation. So those are the ones we can't move around. What else do we have? Any adjustments to the agenda? Under 6, I believe actually we could strike C, because I believe Mr. Farrell withdrew his candidacy, so we could actually strike item C from the agenda. Is that appropriate? All right. Mr. Calvin?
Mr. Chairman, does that give us any latitude to hear some informational items during that time period, or is that kind of? I'm just looking at the length of the agenda. We have a lot of things to cover.
This is true. Unfortunately, it kind of interrupt the flow of things.
I don't think it's a great idea, but.
Do we have anything specific that would be an easy one? That's an informational item that you could bring forward? Does that mean be a motion and see where it goes? See what it's allowed first and then see where it goes.
I was thinking in terms of that, the item with the Buckdale ratios and that sort of thing.
Item 13.
Item 13, yes.
Well, one thing is I don't know if staff would be.
No staff? Okay. Let's just.
Leave it the way it is, strike 6C.
Move something up on another day anyway, can you?
I'm not sure the staff is.
Yeah.
That would be the question I'd have to ask the DAG, but waiting for the motion.
I make motion to accept the agenda with the one change of item 6C. We would delete that interview.
Second.
Okay, it's been properly moved and second to accept the agenda as presented, striking 6C because the candidate had withdrawn. Does everybody understand the motion? We understand the motion down in Las Vegas?
Understood.
All in favor signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes 7-0. Mr. Vogler still not there? All right. It said it'd be.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, go right ahead.
Is the phone line set up for him to call in?
Yes. Set him the password, yes.
Okay.
And I anticipate he'd call.
Can somebody call him and
I'll leave my thing.
maybe slip in?
No, I talked to him.
Yeah, let's see, we've got, when we get to item 6, that's probably the one he really needs to be here for. We can probably go through 3, 4, 5. So let's move on, and he calls in. We can give him a call here in 10 minutes if we don't hear from him. Public comment period. Persons wishing to speak should complete a speaker's card and present it to the recording secretary. Public comment be limited to 3 minutes. Persons are invited to submit comments in writing on the agenda items and/or attend and make comment on the item at the commission meeting. No action can be taken by the commission at this time. Any item requiring commission action will be scheduled on a future commission agenda. And because today we basically have a one-item agenda, no further public comment will be taken at, this is the public comment for our basically one-item agenda today, which goes through interviews with the director, deliberations for director, report of commissioner search committee meeting. All right. We have 3 names here, and let's go to Elko. Is there anyone there that has public comment in Elko?
Yes, sir. Ken Wellington, represent myself. Just one quick question. Did you guys move an item up to number C from informational?
No.
Okay. And then my public comments, again, are for myself. I'm disappointed that on this agenda there was not a county board input. Thus, we took county public input at our meetings this last couple weeks. And so I was a little disappointed in that we're not allowed to express some of the public's concerns. Number 2, I spoke to the governor's office, and they informed me that they had not directed this commission to conduct these interviews at this time. And therefore, I would ask the department if they could supply me with any of the costs, also the governor's office with the costs related to these interviews, and what account they came from. And the last thing I'd like to ask is that each commissioner disclose, if any, financials or anything that's used to obtain the candidates or to interview the candidates and what the costs were to that personally. And that's it. Thank you.
All right. This is the time for public comment, and if you wanted CAB input, we've read everything. I've definitely read everything that's come through email on that, and if you had CAB input, this is indeed the time, Mr. Wellington.
Well, normally on an agenda,
I understand, normally on the agenda, if you have public or CAB input, this is the time.
Okay, well, you gave us 3 minutes for all the public that we had at our meeting, so I have a representative, I believe, there to speak on that, but I don't think 3 minutes was enough to handle that, so you kind of shortcut the public on this process.
We can have some leeway for CAB input. If you have CAB input, please bring it forward. We won't cut you too short.
Okay, I'll allow I believe I have my chairs there right now.
All right, excellent. Any other public input from Elko?
No.
All right, public input, public comment, from Las Vegas.
This is Paul Dixon, Chairman, Clark County Advisory Board. I appreciate Ken Wellington's comments, and we supplied to the public here the resumes of all the candidates you had, and I gave a brief summary of those resumes at the beginning of my meeting. Nobody in audience, and there were 7 members of the public there, 2 who would be considered wildlife very friendly, and the rest were from groups that have been critical of wildlife, which is the Humane Society, the Wild Horse, and No Hunt Bears Nevada.com. And the discussion revolved around the qualifications of candidates and what people thought, and unanimously from the Clark County Board and from the public at the meeting and from the outside groups, everybody felt that Ken Mayer was by far the most qualified candidate, had worked the best in the past with the outside groups, and the outside groups felt that that relationship should continue, and he was doing the right thing. So from Clark County and the public down here, the strong feeling was that Ken Mayer was the most qualified candidate and should be one of the names submitted on the list when you submit it to the governor. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Just a second before we continue from Las Vegas, is that Mr. Vogler on the phone?
I am.
All right, so that makes everyone present here. And before we continue the public comment, one thing I did miss this morning was roll call. It's not on the agenda. If we could go over the roll call of the commission, could you do that for us, Suzanne? Or here, I can do it. Commissioner Capurro.
Present.
Commissioner Cavan.
Here.
Commissioner Howell.
Here.
Commissioner Lent.
Present.
Commissioner Macbeth.
Here.
Commissioner Raine is speaking. Commissioner Schrum.
Here.
Commissioner Vogler.
Here.
Commissioner Wallace.
Here.
All right. Let's continue with public comment from Las Vegas.
No further public comment from Las Vegas.
Okay, thank you from Las Vegas. All right, public comment here. We have a list. Rex Flowers, first on the list. Followed by, who's next, Mr. Vice Chairman? Darrell Harwell.
Good morning, Rex Flowers representing myself. All I would ask of this board is that your item number 7, I believe it is deliberations to take back to create a list for the governor to pick from on your director search. I would ask that you create your list and send that back to the cabs so the cabs can give you public input from their end and their perspective. I don't think there's any great rush to have a new director. I mean, you have several months before we start the new fiscal year to accomplish this. So we would just like to ask that you keep that in mind. If you remember, AB 322 is a bill down there in the legislature to try and cut out, or could conceivably cut out, the process, cut out the cabs and the commission from looking for a director. And if you today decide to go forward with this and take your list of names back to the governor without the cab input, you've so much is already done what they're looking to do. And if you don't approve of A 322, then I don't think in your mind you could fairly send that list on to the governor. Thank you.
Thank you. And this is also time for cab input. We had Darrell Harwell and J.R. Janae. Always do that. Sorry, sir. One day.
Good morning, Commissioners. Darrell Harwell, Washoe County. We, as on our committee, again, want to state on your number 7, after your deliberation, that Washoe County would like you to take your nominations and resubmit it to the county advisory boards so that we can get public input on the people that you have choose before you go forward to the governor with it.
Yeah. I've only got a list of 5. What did Washoe County? I've read some of the minutes. Washoe County had some input, right?
That was the one input that we had. Was our biggest one is we couldn't really, we were trying to pick 3 names out of the hat. Darrell Capurro was very nice in saying that, I mean, the interview process, we really don't know these people, so it's kind of hard just to pick 3 people. So we kind of really have no recommendation until after the interview, but our biggest concern is we hope that you, as a commission, the list that you decide that you want to send to the governor, that goes back through the county advisory boards. And Darrell was the one that told us there is no time issue on this one, so then we can get public input on the 3 candidates that you want to send before the governor.
Okay. For Mr. Janae, and then we have Candido Mendez, Elko Cab.
Jim Janae, and I'll be speaking for myself because we did not get CAB meeting this month. I want to discuss your number 20, Policy 51. I went through all the comments that I got from the different cabs, and I saw no one that, most of them were in favor of holding Policy 51 as it is, and I was going to suggest that we renumber the new one that you've got. We will then have 2 awards that are out there for people. And that'll give us some time to rework Policy 51 a little bit. I have been in contact with Marilyn Kirch on this, and she is all for doing it. I think there's a couple of minor tweaks that need to be made is all, and that way we can have 2 awards.
Thank you. And just for clarification purposes, we will have a further public comment tomorrow I mean, free to comment on any of the items now, but there will be on items 11 through 23. There'll be comment on that tomorrow. Go ahead. Mr. Mendy, Velco Cab, followed by Gil Yannick, Carson City County Advisory Board.
Candido Mendy, representing Elko Cab. With the information that we had available to us that night, the Elko Cab made a motion to support Ken Mayer as director of the Nevada Department of Wildlife. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Go ahead, Mr. Yannick.
For the record, Gil Yannick, Carson Advisory Board. Our advisory board also felt that to go forward with the interviews as planned, but to hold off making any kind of recommendation until 2 things. One, that the cabs had some input, and 2, primarily to find out what's going to happen with AB 322, because that could change a lot of different things. You know, you can make recommendations and the governor may not have to abide by any of them. So we thought it would be moot to make those decisions now, and we should hold off until after AB 322 is decided upon.
All right. Well, this is time for cab input.
Thank you.
I mean, okay, thank you. This is time for cab input. I mean, I keep hearing people saying, I'd like have some time for cab input. This is it. So, any further cab input? We've read a lot of minutes.
That's all I had.
All right, that's all the comment cards. Anybody else have any input? Anybody else? Any public comment from the commission? Seeing none, we'll close the public comment period and move on to item number 4, approval of search committee minutes. Action. Commission will review meeting minutes from March 25th, 2011 meeting, may take action to approve. All right, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I have a amendment to the minutes on page 1 where it says Dana Carvin, it said staff. That's not correct. She's state of Nevada Department of Personnel, I do believe, right? I don't. Is she from the state?
Yes.
Okay, so we'd like to correct that State Department of Personnel.
Right.
Okay.
And then another question I had, and I want to see what we got a conflict in the on the internet on one of the candidates, Ken Mayer. They got references, and it says it lists 3 references: William Raggio, Lynn Hedrick, and Steve Robinson. And yet, in the ones that were handed out to the commission, there's only 2 references. So something changed, and it doesn't make sense.
Is that
somebody changed the references? So I got two sets of resumes, and something's changed on one of them. Can somebody explain that? Did somebody change a resume?
all right?
You've seen those, I'm sure.
Yes. Christina Ross, Personnel Officer for NDOW's Human Resources. We removed Mr. Raggio's name from some input from the governor's office.
So we changed one resume after we received them, right?
After your initial, yeah.
Okay.
Correct.
And was that the only one that changed, just the one candidate? And the other ones, we didn't change anything on? Thank you.
All right. Fair enough. Do we have anything else on the approval of search committee minutes?
I had a question.
Go ahead.
We got to make a motion to approve the.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had just a clarification. We say, and when I went through the minutes, I didn't quite follow. So we say that the committee members in Reno are listed, and we have 5. But my question is, who are the voting who are voting? Is the voting members just the members of the commission, or did all of these people vote?
The 3 commission members.
Were the only vote?
The commission members.
Correct? Is that correct?
Were Commissioner Lent, Commissioner Capurro, and myself.
Okay, that's not very clear in the minutes. It kind of looks like.
Okay, so if we could is that, should have been in the minute, in the, yeah.
They didn't specify committee members.
Oh, it's just got it, us pushed in with
Yeah,
staff.
we should separate that out so that.
Separate staff from committee members present. That is true. 2 years from now, it'll be a question. All right, so we understand that change? Okay. Go ahead. Yeah, a question on the minutes?
I've got a comment on them, yes.
On the minutes, okay. And you had something on the minutes. Was there a problem with them, or?
Yes. Right at the tail end, and I don't have the minutes in front of me, but Rex Flowers made a motion that this should come back to the cabs or something. They've got my name there instead. We were both in agreement on it, but he's the one that got up and spoke.
Oh, okay. So that's on, let's see, scribbled on my copy. So in one portion where it states, Jim Janae expressed concern the county advisory boards, in particular not have time to meet and provide any input in the process, that was really Rex Flowers. Okay. Does anybody have a problem with those changes? Additional ones, motions?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we approve the minutes of the search committee with amendments as presented.
I'll second it.
Okay, do we have, is that clear for staff what the changes are? Do we need to go over them again? Or we're clear? Okay, we're clear.
I'll go over them again if they want.
I just wanted to make sure.
Want me to go over them?
No, yeah, just briefly, run over them so everybody understands clearly.
The change in minutes, we're going to put committee members present, separated. Geraldine Lent, Darrell Capurro, and Scott Raine, chairman, were the committee members present. We're going to change Dana Carvin to State of Nevada Department of Personnel. And we're going to have third paragraph end, cab member, instead of Jim Janae, Rex Flowers. And did you want to add that one name was changed at the governor's office request, taking Raggio off of the reference list? You want that in the minutes or no?
Was your motion?
That wouldn't be a part of these minutes.
That wouldn't be part of the minutes, yeah.
That'd be part of the next
that wouldn't be
minutes.
part of the minutes. So that'd be my motion.
Does everybody understand the motion? We understand it on the phone and in Las Vegas.
Understood. Understood.
All right. All in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
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 All opposed? Motion passes 8-0. Let's move on. Report from the Commissioners Search Committee meeting. Chairman Raine, action. Hey, basically, we met on March 25th, 2011, telephonic meeting. We've just gone over the minutes of that meeting. Mr. Vogel, you still there?
Yes.
All right, we just hear beep, beep. Sometimes wonder. And
I'm on.
we had an original list of, well, what was it? We had 11 candidates, and we determined, mostly based upon staff recommendations, that Jim Burdett, Stephen Dager, Chandler Casper, Jack Raine, and Gregory Smith did not meet the qualifications under Nevada revised statutes. That was all unanimous with staff, State Department of Personnel, and the committee members present. And so we recommended all the rest did indeed go forward, at least to the next step, that they, and that's not to certify that all those candidates are indeed qualified. It's just that those, basically to exclude those because they clearly were not qualified. And we did it strictly under what's NRS. We're just trying to make that determination under ratified statutes to not waste their time in coming in. Is everybody under any questions on that from the commission?
Mike Macbeth in Las Vegas.
Yeah, go ahead, Commissioner Macbeth.
In reading the minutes and also looking at the resumes, I was rather surprised that that the committee recommended Jeremy Rakowitz. It just appears to me that he is also a candidate who clearly did not meet the requirements, and so if you could please elaborate in more detail what the basis for allowing him to move forward was, because I'm just struggling with why he's going to be interviewed today.
All right, we'll have Commissioner Capurro go over that, but first let's comment on it that, we talked about this and our intention was to be more inclusive rather than more exclusive, that if there were, and that there was clearly no chance that any of the other candidates that we excluded were not. We did not want to, at this committee meeting, being not a full commission meeting, exclude a candidate that might prove to actually be qualified. Commissioner Capurro, you spoke more eloquently on it than I did.
I have nothing to add to what you just said.
Okay, and that's basically why we did it.
Mike Macbeth again in Las Vegas. It would just seem to me that the committee would have to make some findings, that they'd have to basically, point to the specific experience that this particular candidate has that meets the requirement of the statute for qualifying for this position. And I don't see that. I don't see it factually, and I don't see that it was developed in the committee meeting. And obviously, I fear that if this individual is put forth as one of the candidates recommended to the governor, that he simply just would not meet the requirements and would be an invalid candidate, on its face. I mean, it just seems to me that this committee needed to make some factual findings to support its decision to allow this candidate to move forward, and I don't think that's happened. I haven't heard anything. Obviously, I wasn't at the committee meeting, but from the minutes and from the discussion that I've heard so far, this particular candidate did not meet the requirements based on his resume. And
Commissioner Macbeth, if I could, this is item number 7.
Take any additional findings or take any additional evidence on it. I just can't see how.
We're really getting ahead of ourselves. This is number 7. This is deliberations. These are probably all great and valid points. All we're saying is what happened at the committee meeting. I think the time for any of those points to come out would be on item number 7. And all we got is the report from the committee meeting. Committee meeting was trying to exclude the obvious candidates that obviously did not meet NRS. The ones that do indeed meet NRS, that's up to the full commission. And that was termination of the committee. So yeah, we're going to be making that determination at the commission level today, and I hope that all those comments come up on number 7.
You need a motion for this?
Yeah, we need a motion on the report. Actually, I guess it's just a report.
Yeah.
It should have just actually been informational. All right. Everybody understood what goes on? Let's move on to interviews for Director, Nevada Department of Wildlife. This will be the informational portion. Commission will conduct interviews of applicants for the position of Director, Nevada Department of Wildlife. Designated times are approximate. Interviews will not be conducted prior to the listed time for that individual. I've got a few guidelines here. And we have Deputy Attorney General to guide us through this. Let me find I just had it out here a second ago. There it is. All right. Deputy Attorney General Brian Stockton. Did everybody see an email from him that was sent out yesterday, being the commissioners? So it would have been privileged information for commissioners. We'll get this for the yeah, good point. Just 1 second. As I'm consult for the people on the phone, I'm asking the Deputy Attorney General a question. Let's see. Did all the commissioners have a chance to read those instructions from Brian Stockton emailed yesterday?
No. Yes, Mike McBeth from Las Vegas.
Yes. You did? Okay. It's very important. Would you like to? It's very important that we ask each candidate the same questions. There's a lot of reasons on that, but we need to make a determination right now. We're going to, each commissioner, the way we're going to do this is we're going to ask one question, and you're going to ask that question of each of the candidates. There's a Deputy Attorney General approved list of questions, so make sure your question is off of that list. And once you ask that question, ask that of each one of the candidates for the reasons explained to us by Deputy Attorney General. Follow-up questions will be strictly limited to the commissioner who asked the original question and may only be asked for the purpose of candidate response clarification. So I'm not going to be asking a follow-up question to Mr. Wallace's original question. He can do a follow-up as long as it pertains directly to the responses from the candidate. We don't want to get off on a separate subject. That would be a problem.
Chairman Raine?
Yes, go ahead.
For the record, this is Hank Vogler. I did not receive that email. Could somebody send it to me? I have my computer on.
It's on his
I've
computer.
submitted a question.
It should be on his computer.
So,
give me 3.2
I
seconds.
assume that
We'll
it's
do
a
that.
qualified question, but I have not received an email from Mr. Stockton. All I got from Mr. Stockton was that he was out of the office till the 18th.
It would come from Sandra Geyer.
I had it in spam.
Yeah, and I had it in spam as well for some reason.
It wasn't in my spam.
Hold on. Let's see. Your email address is?
needmoresheepco@yahoo.com.
Need
more sheep co.
C-O?
Yeah.
At Yahoo.
needmoresheepco@yahoo.com.
Sending now. Amazing what these little gadgets will do, as long as it works.
I'm glad you do that. You could do that.
All right, it should be, it says it's sent, so hopefully it ought to show up there in a minute or so. Order of questions. What we'll do is we'll do alphabetical and we'll stick to it. So it'll end by last name. So we'll start with Commissioner Capurro, Cavan, Howell, Lent, McBeth, Raine, Shrum, Vogler, Wallace. And we'll stick with that same order through each candidate with your question. And it can be, and if a commissioner did not ask any, submit any questions, or for some reason they didn't get on the list, there's a list of questions. Pick one from that list. It doesn't have to be your own question. It could be somebody else's question, as long as it's from the Deputy Attorney General approved list of questions. All right. how are we doing on the computer?
Got it.
Excellent. Life is good. All right, give you a chance to read that over briefly. And we'll talk about the asking candidates to be out of the room. Are any of the other candidates in the room at this time? Mr. Beach, Bertolotti, Lansford, I saw Mr. Mayor left, Jeremy Rakowicz, not present. All right, would you like to make comments on that, or want me to? Okay, while the open meeting law states that all the candidates could be present, we'd just ask that for courtesy to the other candidates, that they, of their own volition, exclude themselves from the room until all the interviews are done, although they are legally entitled to be here. Deputy Attorney General is nodding his head. For the record. Oh, and we have staff and public here, and like to instruct them, these questions should not go out of this room. We'll have a lunch break in the middle. They should not be referred or directed to those candidates. It would be unfair to the candidates that come on later on if those questions are relayed in any fashion to the other candidates that were not present. Is that fair enough? We've got to be fair as we can. All right. Anything else that we missed here? Seeing nothing, we'll move on to the first months. Does everybody have a question figured out on the commission? Commissioner Cabral, I know you're up first, so you have a question picked out?
Yes.
Okay. Does everybody else have a question picked out in their mind? All right. Just mark that question and stick with it. Commissioner Vogler, you have a question, right? I saw your one question. It appears to be approved as by the Deputy Attorney General as you wrote it. Commissioner McBeth, you have a question from the approved list chosen?
Yes, I do.
Excellent. All right.
How is that going to work with two of the commissioners not putting in questions? Are they going to ask their question after everybody else has chosen theirs? Or do we have to indicate now who's asking what question?
All right, we can go through. We can do it that way. Commissioner Cabral might be picking my favorite question, but that's okay.
I'm going to be asking the number 3 question that was submitted by Gerald Lent.
All right, the third question by Gerald Lent, starting with describe your management style. All right. Commissioner Cavan?
I'll be asking my question number 1.
Your question number 1. Commissioner Howell?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to be asking my question number 1 that was submitted.
All right. Commissioner Lent?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to be asking my question number 2.
Commissioner McBeth?
I'm going to be asking my first question.
All right. Got it. The one starts given that the Nevada Department of Wildlife. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. I will be asking my, let me pull this out here. My first question. Mr. Schrum. Commissioner Schrum.
I'll be asking question number 2, which is a recommended question.
Commissioner Schrum's number 2. Got it. I got to get these things straight. That's how. Got it. All right. And then we have Commissioner Vogler.
Yes, sir.
You'll be asking Your one question?
I have my one question. It says recommended. It's not numbered, but it's the one that I submitted, and it's the one that I want to ask.
Excellent. Makes life simple. Commissioner Wallace.
I'm going to be asking a question submitted by Commissioner Cavan, number 3.
By Commissioner Cavan, starts with recommended, considering?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So there we go. We're all clear. Everybody knows the procedure, and basically, I'm going to ask them to come in. I'm saying this now, so everybody says I'm going to ask them if they please introduce themselves, tell us why they should be the director of the Department of Wildlife, what their qualifications are, and just ask them to respond basically to that. And then when they get done giving their presentation, anything they have to say, then we'll come back. Then we'll come back and have the and we should give them at least 10 minutes. They might have a pretty good presentation. We have questions from each commissioner. We have 1 hour slated for each commissioner, and or for each candidate. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And ask them at the end. I'll make that notation at the end if they have anything additional they'd like to add. All right, that being the case, could we have Mr. Robert Beach? Hello, good morning. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you. Scott Raine, Chairman.
Robert Beach.
This is the commissioners. We have 2 commissioners on the telephone. Commissioner Macbeth and Commissioner Vogler are on the telephone as well. I'd like you, if you could, just tell us why you should be the Director of the Department of Wildlife, your qualifications, anything you'd like to express to us, and then we'll have some questions for you.
Alrighty. Well, I'm a career wildlife biologist. I've started in wildlife back in '73. I've worked as a state employee in Texas at the time. Went on into federal. I've worked as research and as supervisory biologist. In the Texas program, I had the opportunity of supervising both state and federal. We were a dual program. I moved from there over to Nevada, where we had a dual program. So I worked supervising wildlife through both the state side and the federal side in those states. And when I came over to Nevada, that was the same setup. In fact, in Nevada, when I came here, I was the state supervisor of the state program, which was PARC, P-A-R-C, Predatory Animal Rodent Committee. So I functioned as a state supervisor of an agency as well as the federal. And so I've got a lot of experience both from the state side and the federal side looking at wildlife in Texas, which is a predominantly private land state, Nevada, which is a predominantly federal land state, in New Mexico, which was pretty much 50-50 and had a lot of state lands on it. So I've worked with Forest Service, I've worked with BLM, and as well as the game departments in 3 different states. So I think that that coverage enables me to see how it's been handled in one area versus another area, what worked in one area versus another. In Texas, we had a lot of the deer were private land deer, and how they were addressed. A lot of enclosures, paddock area. Up here, it's that's unheard of. And so I think I've got a real diverse past that way. That I've got a broader view of how wildlife can be handled and how natural resources work in conjunction with agriculture and the game departments. And my entire career, 34 years worth with the federal program, was aimed at natural resource protection. And in fact, when we dissolved PARC, moved PARC from an agency over into a division of agriculture, we named that the Protection of Natural Resource Division. And I think that's my primary reason for looking at this position, is that I think that we've got a terrific resource here, a natural resource. The mule deer, they're kind of the golden goose for wildlife. If you have a good mule deer population, then you've got the potential of interesting of bringing the interest of a lot of sportsmen and sportsman money. So your first primary resource is your wildlife. Your secondary resource are those people who utilize the resource. And I think it really is important that we put strong emphasis on resource protection. And that's what I've done all my career, so that's why I'm interested in this position. I'm a certified wildlife biologist and have been from the very beginning of the Wildlife Society's certification program. I was one of the first folks to apply for certification and be certified. So I am a certified wildlife biologist and would be proud to come back to Nevada and do that.
Excellent. I have some questions. We'll have just one question from each commissioner. Commissioner Capurro?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Beach, for attending this and giving us your background in that. I've read your resume, and we appreciate the information that you provided. My question to you is that I'll sit down here. Oh, my goodness. I would like you to describe your management style and philosophy of holding people accountable with consequences for their actions or inactions.
Throughout my career, I think I've got a real good record of working with the HR department. I believe that in a high level of ethics, and I believe that even in the federal government, where there's a considerable paperwork trail in order to establish a problem, if there's a problem, that problem needs to be corrected. And sometimes I found in the federal government, it could take years to accomplish, but I think it's important that we do have a strong ethical demand of our people, all of them, not just the folks at the lower level, but all the way to the top. And if there's a problem, I think it needs to be resolved. I don't believe in any form of, say, Gestapoism. I don't think the fear factor should be the main reason that they're correcting. I think it should be training and a firm but just hand.
Very good. Commissioner Cavan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Beach, for applying. And I, as well, have reviewed your resume, and it looks like you've had a long career and a great career. So my question is that if you were appointed to lead this department, what is the one issue that you would give the highest priority, and what would be your approach to solving that issue?
Well, that's a good but difficult question. I say it's difficult because going in, it's from the outside you can look at something and you can say, this is my perception of what the situation is, and then once you get in and they're sitting at the seat and you have a little broader, I guess, access to that could change. And but from my vantage point, and from the 9 years that I spent working here in Nevada, the one thing that I really felt there needed to be an emphasis on was to get a better survey accounting of what we actually have, and establishing not a broad number, say, of mule deer, but for specific areas. What's that population number? What's that? What problems are being handled in those particular areas? I know that every state in the West has different survey techniques and accomplishments, annual accomplishments. But I think it's important to standardize and find out exactly what our animals are, what numbers of animals we have out there, what pressures are on them, and what needs to be done in specific areas to correct those situations. And I think I would concentrate an effort to establish that.
Okay.
Excellent. Charlie Howell, Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Beach. Thank you for being here today. We really appreciate it. What do you feel has been your best accomplishment in regards to wildlife, and the area where you have been most frustrated in advancing your goals?
Another difficult question. I would say and I don't say this just because I'm here in Nevada, but when I came to Nevada in '96, we had a very different relationship between the federal program and the state program. Wildlife Services and NDOW did not have a good working relationship. And over the 9 years that I was here, we went from two separate and distinct entities that kind of circled each other when we walked down the hall to a very close working group. And in fact, Wildlife Services moved from being strictly an agricultural resource protection to being strongly wildlife protection. And I think all of our resources deserve to have a level of protection when needed. And I think I'm really proud of the fact that we turned around an adversarial relationship into a real friendly, cooperative relationship. And it benefited wildlife for that. And there was two parts to the question.
Where do you feel you've failed to accomplish your goals, or most frustrated, I should say?
I think the frustration in every state I've worked in, the frustration has been, in my life, I've been a federal employee, and there always seems to be a difficulty of interacting between the federal and the state side, and whether it's BLM or the Forest Service or the Fish and Wildlife Service. I think it's really frustrating that you have wildlife biologists that have the same goals, but because of politics or the different entity you're working for, it's just hard to work on those goals together. And I think we did pretty good here in Nevada, but that's not always the case, and that's been frustrating.
Commissioner Limp.
Welcome, Mr. Beach.
Thank you.
My question is there's two parts to the question, and I'll read it kind of slow and describe how you would relate and work with the commission on long-range goals between the commission and department, and describe how you would cooperate with the commission regarding their budget requests and policies, even if you didn't agree with some of their concepts, and also give us your definition of the role of the commission.
Okay. Well, I think this is a good topic for me, because I've got a good record here in Nevada. At one point, a number of years back, as a wildlife service person, I came to the commission and we started talking about wildlife services providing assistance in natural resources protection, and I think through those years I've demonstrated that I can work closely with the commission, because we did set up programs. We established working units that were small enough that we could define them. We started, we set up a system where we defined what the project would be, what the initiation levels were, what would constitute an endpoint. We were able to set up all of the guidelines up front, so we both knew where we were coming from. And we were able to set up budgets and explain the budgets back and forth. And I always felt that our relationship was such that whether it was at the beginning of the project, in the middle of the project, or at the end of the project, we knew where we were at, whether we had reached our mile points, what projects were being done. And in communications, the important thing, to be able to understand what to expect from each other. So, I can say that, but also my history of how I've interacted with the commission and with the game department, I think also shows that I do have that ability to communicate and work with you folks. As to what I envision the commission to be, I think I see the commission as being the, I guess, conscience and direction side of the program, whereas the director is kind of the operative side of the program. And whereas the director has just his idea, the commission is the sounding board and the I guess conscience of what needs to be done. I would hope that they work hand in glove. I don't see how it can work successfully and not be hand in glove. There's always the times when a director of the program doesn't 100% agree with the policies that come down, but just as I would expect people below me to understand that maybe I don't know the whole picture, or maybe my side isn't 100% correct. I would think that communication and the decision that we will work together would have to be the end point to it. I do not see it benefits either side to butt heads. Communication, agreement, and compromise when possible, or bend and try to convince. So,
thank you. Excellent. Commissioner Macbeth, he's on the telephone down in Las Vegas.
Hello, sir.
Welcome, Mr. Beach. We appreciate you applying for the director position. You have very impressive qualifications in your area. My question is basically, given that the Nevada Department of Wildlife involves multiple divisions, which include operations, conservation education, fisheries, game, habitat, law enforcement, and wildlife diversity, and that the director is responsible for representing the department before multiple sportsmen, conservation, and public groups, please explain to the Commission how you will meet the challenges of managing the department and responding to the multiple consumptive and non-consumptive users of Nevada's wildlife resources.
If you couldn't hear all that, I could repeat it. Could you hear it?
I think that'd be a
so.
good
Okay.
idea.
Wanted to make sure.
Did you get it okay? Because I had trouble hearing it.
My understanding was that given the numerous divisions that the director will be responsible for overseeing, from law enforcement to conservation education to fisheries, et cetera, how would I supervise all equally and fairly? Is that I think in any situation where you're the director, a state director level, which I have considerable experience with, you have a lot of divisions. And in Texas, I had urban programs, I had aviation programs. You're responsible for working with all of them, but generally, it's not as imposing as it seems from the outside, because you generally have good directors over top of each of those divisions, and you work closely with those people and through those people to address the different divisions. So even though there are 7 or so divisions, you've got 7 contact people, and those contact people are, of course, working up to you to make sure that you're listening to their division and you're talking down through them to the division. So I don't see that as being a problem. I'm fully aware of the fact that NDOW is a broad program and have these different divisions, and that each division is an integral part of the program. So I would work through all of those programs.
Mr. Beach, just as a follow-up, because I think you got about half of the question. The remaining half would be how you basically represent the user groups, the public, the sportsmen, the conservationist, and all consumptive and non-consumptive user groups, how you would basically deal with those groups as well, in the context of the multiple divisions of the Department of Wildlife.
Well, I would guess the number one way I would say it is an open door policy. I think that I would be equally available to all of our constituents and listen to them all equally. Certainly there are differences, and each of the constituents are, I guess, anxious to be heard, and so making myself available to them, and wanting the support of each of the constituents to buy in, because if they don't buy into the program, then we can't work together. So one of the ways that you get them to buy in is to find out what it is that they're expecting of the program, and to make a big effort to meet those expectations.
Excellent. Next question is mine, and that is, please explain in as much detail as possible how you, as the Director of Nevada Department of Wildlife, would respond when given direction by the Commission to enact a policy for Nevada Department of Wildlife that you personally disagree with.
I don't mean to make this sound flippant, but I've worked for the federal government for a lot of time. I've got a lot of experience of being given policies that I don't agree with, that I put into effect, and I've also worked in a very at times, not so much now as it was in the past, but there was a time when being in predator control or animal control environment made me very much the black hat bad guy. And a lot of times I was working, and this isn't exactly parallel in this policy, but when you're working in a state and you're trying to represent the various constituencies, and one of them is PETA, and one of them is the Humane Society, and you're trying to explain to them, as we did here in Nevada, why we are euthanizing beavers, you know, you're working with policies that you may not, they may not agree with, I may not agree with, we compromise. It would have been much easier, for instance, in the Truckee for us to go out and use lethal control in the water, much nicer for the beaver. But in order to compromise and make everybody happy, we found the solution by live trapping them, taking the beavers to the Humane Society and letting them put the animals down. As a biologist, I understood that was very hard on the beavers to be transported and carried around. But it was very hard on certain people to think that they were being killed underwater, although biologically that was the nicer thing to do to the animal. You know, and I use that as an analogy that it was hard for me to realize that I'm hurting these animals in order to make these people happy about not hurting these animals. But we did it, and we were able to figure out a compromise to where we resolved the problem, and two radically different groups were happy with the solution. I think that kind of if I were the director of NDOW and if I got a ruling that I thought was not exactly what I would like to do, I think I could still make both sides happy.
Excellent. I was hearing cell phone going off back. If everybody make sure their phones are at least silent. I'm off, please. All right, we have another next question from Commissioner Hal Schrum.
Good morning, Mr. Beach.
Good morning.
Thank you for applying and being here this morning. My question is, do you feel that the current low number of deer is due to the loss of habitat or failure to do predator control, and what needs to be done, by whom, and how long do you think it will take?
If I really knew the answer to that, I would be in great demand. I believe that there are a plethora of different environments across Nevada, and probably you could find each of those, habitat, weather, predation, a primary responsible entity for some of the different locations. And those would change from different times of the year in different years. I think that, like a lot of biology, you live in a transient, unpredictable environment. I think that the biggest solution for it is, as I mentioned earlier, a good, solid, heavy surveying to know exactly what you have out there, and not just what kind of animals you've got out there, but what kind of habitat those animals happen to be in at this time. And I do believe that habitat can be a primary responsibility, but one thing that's always kind of interested me about Nevada is Nevada has a very high percentage of land managed by professional land managers. And you know, to me, if you've got federal land that has professional land managers managing it, And if you got people pointing at that land and saying it's habitat, then call up the land managers and say, why is it habitat? And get state and federal people working together and resolving it. As a wildlife manager, I'd like to be able to manage the wildlife and not the habitat, not so much the land. In a lot of instances, you can't do that. But in Nevada, you've got, or should have, the responsibility of land management in the hands of professional land managers. And a good close relationship between the state and the federal, pointing out that as a land manager, working with me, the wildlife manager, this is what I need for my animals to be healthy. And if they're going to, if they look at it and say, well, it isn't the land, then you've got support to say it is something else, like predator control. And I think when you're looking at predator control, it's important that even though we tend to refer to it as predator control, what it is, it's resource protection. So if you're looking, using, for instance, mule deer in a situation, it's not mule deer versus coyotes. It's what do we do to protect the vulnerable period of the mule deer during that period when it's vulnerable. The mule deer might have no problem with that particular predator, except for the month before and the month after birth of the fawns. So you've got a 2-month period, and only where there's fawns on the ground that you actually got a conflict situation. So it's, it tends to be a much smaller interaction between us and the predators if we're looking at it as protecting the resource and not fighting the predator. And if we can hold the predator back away from that resource while that resource is vulnerable, and then let it go back to an unprotected situation when it doesn't need protected, we don't have that conflict from the other constituents about predator control. And I think it's not fair, which people do at times, to say it's either predators or it's the environment or it's habitat or it's the weather. It can be all three of these things. And working on the predator protection side of things, if I'm seeing my resource being heavily leaned upon by one aspect, for instance, habitat, or for instance, it's a really dry year, that's the time when taking a little bit of the predator pressure off of it does it a big favor. It can more easily endure a lack of water, a lack of adequate feed, if it isn't being chased off of its feed or off of its water by a predator that's detecting that it's a little bit weak right now. So one can lead to the other, is what I'd say. I know that sounds like I've said I don't know, but I think in reality it's often a little of each of them, and sometimes a lot of each of them at one time. And that's when we need to step in and help them. Thank you.
All right, on the telephone we have Commissioner Hank Vogler.
Yes, sir. Good morning, Bob.
Good morning.
Long time no see.
Yeah, it has been.
What is your opinion of the multiple use mandate in the Tailored Grazing Act?
Well, I believe that it's pretty clear. The original intention was that the public lands be used for renewable resources, and that it be not treated as a preserve, but be treated as a natural resource that was renewable and beneficial to the population, to be used, but used judiciously and fairly. I think as BLM was started off to be the U.S. grazing service, and it moved into the BLM. And when the Grazing Act was created, it was created with the idea that the federal government would make the public lands available to the populace to use as a renewable resource. And we've drifted a little ways from that. But it is public lands and not federal lands, or that was the intention of BLM.
All right, and last question is from Commissioner Grant Wallace.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for being here today, Mr. Beach.
Thank you.
Considering the current statewide budget crisis and the loss or reduction in general fund revenue, how would you propose funding non-game and other programs without the use of sportsmen's dollars?
Well, I guess my general thought in that mind is that there should be available to the public a heritage stamp type mechanism to where those people in the public who don't want to support wildlife through tags and licenses would be given the option to buy a stamp. And I think there should be a lot of education and a lot of support to let the people of the public know that it's not tax money that supports wildlife. By and large, it's the hunter that supports wildlife departments through their licenses and through their tags, and that those non-hunters are relying on the hunting population to protect not just the huntable animals, but also the horned toads and the frogs and the fish. And I think with the proper education supporting a heritage stamp, and I say a heritage stamp, but I really think as variable as possible. Even things such as a license plate that could be made available to people to be able to announce on the back of their vehicle that I am a heritage stamp, wildlife protector. That kind of a thing with good education can bring a lot of money in. There's a lot of people out there that like wildlife, that say they support wildlife, but they're certainly never going to buy a hunting license, and they're not going to buy a tag. And to give them enough education to understand that these animals cannot be protected, and in their mind, probably they don't want them to be protected by just hunters, that they want to step up and be able to claim that I do as much for wildlife as the hunters do. I think education and as varied a program, whether it's stamps, license plates, even some kind of an insignia that they could purchase, that when they go out, whether it's bird watching or hiking, to have something to say that I am a supporter of the wildlife of Nevada. I think you can get people to donate money for that kind of stuff. If you somehow can give them the recognition that they are putting into this part of the solution to the problem.
Excellent. I think that's all of our questions. And I'd like to thank you for coming here today. I think everybody's had a good chance to read all of your information, but if you have any additional comments that you'd like to leave us with.
Well, I appreciate you inviting me back to Nevada. I was here for 9 years. I had a really good relationship with the game department, with the commission, with the state. It's a good state. I think we've got a lot of potential here, and I was really excited about the opportunity to put my name in for a position like this. I suspect you guys have got a lot of good people that you're going to have to look at, but I hope my answers today have been what you were looking for. And again, I appreciate the opportunity for being here. I greatly appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, go ahead.
5 minutes.
5 minutes. 5 minutes. We'll have 5 minutes. Well, actually, we've got to wait 5 minutes anyway at 9:30. We'll be back with Gary.